HFY Sci-Fi Story Outline Title. El Consejo y la Reina Alienígena. Retroceden. Cuando Humanos Regresan de Zona Prohibida. Story Overview. A humanity-centric science fiction tale where human explorers return from a forbidden zone of space with unprecedented technology and knowledge, causing the Galactic Council and an alien queen to retreat in fear of humanity's newfound power. Part 1. 500 words, setup, and immediate tension. The story opens with the human ship, Defiant, emerging from quantum space near the Galactic Council's central station. Communication channels explode with urgent warnings. The humans aboard have been declared dead for 3 years after entering the Void Sector, a region of space where 17 advanced civilizations sent expeditions that never returned. Captain Marcus Gray and his crew of 40 humans step onto the Council station. The alien delegates recoil in visible horror. The humans appear unchanged, but their ship radiates energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Security drones malfunction in their presence. Commander Lisa Bennett carries a metallic sphere that hums with impossible frequencies. The Council's chief scientist, a crystalline being named Zethrak, demands they surrender it immediately. Marcus refuses calmly, explaining they've brought back proof of what destroyed the previous expeditions. The Vraxian ambassador threatens military action. The station's weapons systems activate. Marcus simply raises his hand, and every weapons system on the station powers down simultaneously. The council chamber falls silent. Queen Sarathia of the Korvax Empire, watching remotely, cuts her transmission feed. For the first time in her 400-year reign, she feels genuine fear. Marcus begins his report. They encountered the architects in the Void Sector, ancient machines left behind by a dead civilization, and these machines test species that enter, evaluating their worthiness. Of the 17 expeditions before them, none passed the trials. The humans did. The crew demonstrates fragments of their new capabilities. Engineer Kyle Morrison reconstructs a broken drone with a thought. Medical officer Amanda Price heals Zethrak's assistant, who suffered radiation burns moments before, by simply touching the wound. Pilot Jake Sullivan describes navigating through dimensions the Council's mathematics claim don't exist. The Council demands to know how humanity survived when vastly superior civilizations failed. Lisa Bennett steps forward with the answer that changes everything. The architects tested not technological advancement, but adaptability and will to survive. Humanity's history of overcoming impossible odds made them ideal candidates. Marcus delivers the ultimatum. Humanity requests full council membership and access to all restricted technologies. In exchange, they'll share selective knowledge from the architects. The alternative is humanity developing independently, with capabilities the Council cannot match or predict. The Council erupts in chaos. Half demand humanity's immediate detention and study. The others recognize the futility of opposing beings who survived what killed their greatest explorers. Queen Sarathia's transmission reconnects. Her voice, usually commanding and absolute, trembles slightly. She agrees to emergency negotiations and orders her fleet to maintain distance from all human vessels. The story establishes that humanity has returned transformed, possessing knowledge and abilities that fundamentally shift the galactic power balance. Part 2. 800 words, rising tension and revelation. The Council convenes in emergency session. Ambassador Thelkor of the Meridian Collective proposes immediate military containment. His species once ruled 12 systems through technological superiority. The humans threaten that dominance. Marcus and his crew are escorted to a secured conference chamber. Energy barriers designed to contain antimatter blasts surround them. Lisa Bennett laughs, placing her hand against the barrier. It flickers and dies. The Council's most advanced containment technology fails like wet paper. Through holographic feeds, representatives from 200 species watch nervously. Queen Sarathia appears in person for the first time in decades, her massive form filling a specialized chamber. The insectoid queen's compound eyes focus entirely on the humans, with predatory intensity. Marcus begins the detailed briefing. The void sector contains a massive structure, larger than most solar systems. The architects built it as a testing ground and repository of knowledge spanning millions of years. Each species that entered faced trials designed to expose their fundamental nature. The Vraxians sent their elite shock troops. The trials killed them within hours. The crystalline Zeth sent their greatest minds. The trials drove them insane. The machine race synthetics sent autonomous units. The trials corrupted their programming irreversibly. Commander Bennett displays recordings from their journey. The Council watches as the human crew faces a trial called the Infinite Choice. Each crew member experienced personalized scenarios where they had to sacrifice something precious for survival. Unlike previous species who refused sacrifice or collapsed under moral weight, humans adapted. One recording shows Kyle Morrison choosing to destroy his own research to save a teammate. Another displays Amanda Price treating hostile entities with medical care despite personal risk. Jake Sullivan navigated through spatial anomalies by trusting instinct over instrument readings when all logic failed. The architects evaluated these choices. Humanity passed because they demonstrated something rare: the ability to change fundamental behaviors when survival demanded it, while maintaining core ethical principles under extreme pressure. The Council remains skeptical until Marcus reveals the critical information. The architects didn't just test species. They prepared survivors for something specific. A threat exists beyond explored space, and moving slowly toward the galaxy. The architects calculated its arrival within 3 centuries. This entity consumed the architects' creators. It consumes everything. Previous civilizations the architects tested failed because the coming threat requires capabilities beyond pure technology or logic. It requires adaptability, creativity, and irrational determination. Queen Sarathia's translator struggles to convey her next question. She demands to know what humanity gained from the architects besides knowledge. What physical changes did the trials produce? Medical officer Amanda Price provides the answer. The trials fundamentally altered human neural architecture and quantum biological functions. Humans can now perceive and interact with dimensions previously theoretical. They process information at rates approaching quantum computation. Most significantly, they can interface directly with ancient technologies throughout the galaxy. She demonstrates by activating a dormant console in the council chamber that nobody knew existed. Information floods the screens, revealing the station was built on architect foundations. Humanity can now access systems the council species never detected. The implications cascade through the assembly. Humans didn't just survive the void sector. They inherited administrative access to infrastructure underlying galactic civilization. The architects essentially made humanity the galaxy's emergency protocols. Ambassador Thelcor attempts another argument for human containment. Commander Lisa Bennett interrupts by displaying his species' complete military deployment, classified research stations, and weapon specifications. She obtained this information by thinking about it near a computer terminal. No hacking, no infiltration. The architect legacy simply provides. The council descends into panic. Several ambassadors demand their governments be contacted immediately. Others call for coalition against humanity. A few recognize reality and begin calculating diplomatic advantages. Queen Sarathia raises a pincer, silencing the chamber. Her translator conveys measured words despite her obvious agitation. She acknowledges humanity's position is unassailable through force. She proposes an alternative, a partnership where humanity shares architect knowledge in exchange for galactic resources and territory. Marcus considers this. He counterproposes, humanity joins the Council as a permanent member with veto power, receives 3 colonizable systems immediately, and gains access to restricted technologies. In exchange, humans will train mixed species teams to interface with architect systems throughout the galaxy, preparing all civilizations for the coming threat. The Council faces an impossible choice: accept humanity's dominance or risk facing the unknown threat, unprepared, while humanity develops independently. Queen Sarathia requests time to consult with her advisors. Marcus grants 6 hours. The humans settle in to wait, visibly unconcerned about the outcome. They've already won. Part 3. 1,000 words, Council division, and human demonstration. The 6-hour deadline approaches with the Council fractured into hostile camps. The Vraxian ambassador leads a coalition of 12 species demanding human submission to galactic law. Ambassador Thelkor's Meridian Collective proposes a compromise that would restrict human expansion while granting limited Council participation. Queen Sarathia maintains silence, observing through her compound eyes as lesser powers debate. Her species survived for millennia by recognizing when power shifted irreversibly. The humans represent such a shift, but her advisors remain divided on the appropriate response. In the human delegation's chamber, the crew prepares for multiple scenarios. Marcus reviews tactical assessments with his second officer, Lieutenant Daniel Cruz. Amanda Price monitors the station's biological systems, noting stress markers in numerous alien delegates. Kyle Morrison maps energy flows through the station's infrastructure, identifying vulnerabilities they might need to exploit. A priority transmission arrives from Earth. Admiral Catherine Morgan, commander of humanity's space forces, appears via quantum relay. Behind her, the blue-green planet rotates peacefully, unaware of the crisis unfolding at the galaxy's political center. Admiral Morgan's message is direct. Earth's governments unanimously support Marcus's position. Furthermore, they've dispatched 15 additional vessels through the void sector. All crews pass the architect trials. Humanity now possesses a fleet of enhanced ships, with capabilities matching the Council's combined military forces. Marcus processes this information carefully. Earth's leadership is escalating, transforming this diplomatic incident into a declaration of humanity's permanent place among galactic powers. He understands the strategy, but knows it risks open conflict. The 6-hour deadline expires. The Council reconvenes with security forces visibly positioned throughout the chamber. Thelkor takes the podium first, presenting the compromise proposal. Humanity would receive 3 systems as requested, but under joint Council human administration. Human expansion beyond these systems would require Council approval. Council membership would be provisional for 50 years. Marcus stands to respond. Before he speaks, Commander Bennett activates a holographic display showing real-time feeds from across the galaxy. Dozens of dormant architect installations are awakening, responding to human presence. These installations exist on worlds claimed by every major power, revealing infrastructure nobody suspected. The feeds show architect structures emerging from underground on Vraxian colony worlds, rising from ocean depths on Meridian planets, and materializing in orbit around Queen Sarathia's throne world. Each structure responds to proximity of human consciousness, activating systems dormant for millions of years. The message is unmistakable. Architect technology permeates the galaxy, and humanity alone can access it. Any attempt to constrain humans becomes impossible when they can activate potentially hostile systems on any world. You're in any system, at any time. Ambassador Thelcor's crystalline form flashes with distressed colors. He demands to know if the humans are threatening the Council. Marcus responds calmly that they're demonstrating reality. The architects built the galaxy's fundamental infrastructure. Humanity inherited that legacy. The Council must adapt to this truth. Queen Sarathia finally speaks, her translated voice carrying authority that silences all debate. She acknowledges humanity's position and proposes a direct negotiation between herself and Captain Gray, excluding the Council entirely. As the galaxy's most powerful sovereign, she claims right of personal diplomacy. The Council erupts in protests. Smaller powers recognize that if Queen Sarathia negotiates separately, she'll secure advantages for her empire while leaving others vulnerable. The Vraxian ambassador accuses her of betraying the Council's collective authority. The Queen's response demonstrates why she's ruled for centuries. She notes that smaller powers can continue debating while she protects her empire's interests, or they can present unified terms immediately. She gives them 30 minutes to decide. Marcus respects the maneuver. Sarathia just forced the Council to accelerate decision-making by threatening to negotiate separately. She's simultaneously acknowledging human power while ensuring her empire maintains relevance in the new order. During the 30-minute recess, Lisa Bennett approaches Marcus with concerning information. Her enhanced senses detect encrypted communications between several Council species and their military commands. At least 3 species are positioning warships near human space, preparing for potential conflict despite the obvious futility. Jake Sullivan confirms this through his dimensional awareness. He perceives military vessels entering quantum states, preparing to strike Earth's system if negotiations fail catastrophically. The species involved believe they can eliminate humanity's homeworld before enhanced humans can respond. Marcus makes a difficult calculation. Revealing this intelligence would prove humans can detect all military movements, further alarming the Council. Ignoring it risks Earth's safety. He chooses a middle path, instructing Amanda Price to send a coded warning to Admiral Morgan while preparing a demonstration that will discourage military action. The Council reconvenes with a unified proposal, hastily assembled under Sarathia's pressure. Humanity receives immediate Council membership without provisional period. 5 colonizable systems instead of 3, and access to most restricted technologies. In exchange, humans must provide architect interface training to mixed species teams and share threat assessment data about the approaching entity. The proposal includes limitations. Human vessels may not enter certain sacred systems without permission. Architect installations on existing worlds remain under local government authority unless emergency conditions exist. And humans must participate in collective defense arrangements. Marcus listens carefully, then requests a brief demonstration before responding. He asks Kyle Morrison to step forward. The engineer approaches a central holographic projector and places both hands near it without touching. The projector transforms, displaying real-time tactical data from across the galaxy. Every military vessel, every defense station, every weapons system appears in perfect detail. Morrison filters the display to show the ships currently moving toward Earth's system with hostile intent. The 3 species involved freeze as their secret deployments appear before the entire Council. Sarathia's compound eyes narrow. She demands explanation from those ambassadors. Marcus speaks into the tense silence. Humanity accepts the Council's proposal with one addition. Any species that threatens human civilians will find their military infrastructure permanently disabled. He nods to Morrison, who concentrates briefly. Across the galaxy, the three species approaching warships lose all power simultaneously. Weapons offline, propulsion dead, life support minimum. They drift helplessly in space, crews unharmed but thoroughly defeated. The demonstration ends. Marcus returns to the proposal, accepting all terms on behalf of humanity. The Council, thoroughly intimidated, approves his acceptance unanimously. Queen Sarathia personally welcomes humanity to galactic civilization, her voice carrying undertones of respect, mixed with barely concealed fear. Part 4. 1,000 Words, Integration and Resistance. 3 weeks after the historic agreement, humanity begins integrating into galactic society with unsettling efficiency. Captain Marcus Gray oversees establishment of Earth's embassy on the Council Station, while coordinated efforts across human space prepare for expanded interstellar presence. The 5 systems granted to humanity prove strategically valuable. Admiral Catherine Morgan directs colonization fleets toward these territories, each escorted by enhanced vessels from the Void Sector. Other species watch nervously as humans demonstrate construction capabilities that dwarf expectations. Commander Lisa Bennett leads the first Architect Interface training program with 40 students from 20 different species. The training facility, a repurposed section of the Council Station, quickly reveals uncomfortable truths about the interface process. Most species struggle to achieve even basic connection with Architect technology. Their neural architectures, evolved for different environments and selection pressures, lack the flexibility required. A crystalline Zeth student manages minimal data access after 6 days of intensive practice. A Meridian warrior achieves nothing despite exceptional technological aptitude. 2 species show unexpected promise. The Korvax, Queen Sarathia's insectoid people, and the Proleth, an aquatic civilization rarely involved in council politics. Both possessed neural plasticity approaching human levels, suggesting the architects valued adaptability across different evolutionary paths. Queen Sarathia monitors these results personally. She dispatches her best scientists and warriors to Bennett's program, recognizing that interface capability will determine power in the emerging galactic order. And if Korvax can master architect systems alongside humans, her empire maintains relevance. Meanwhile, resistance to human integration manifests across multiple fronts. The Vraxian ambassador, humiliated by the Council's capitulation, begins organizing covert opposition. He recruits species who fear human dominance, building a coalition united by shared resentment. On the industrial world of Hexar Prime, human engineers work alongside local Hexari technicians to activate a massive architect manufacturing complex buried beneath the planet's surface. The project proceeds smoothly until saboteurs destroy a critical power relay, killing 3 Hexari workers and injuring 2 humans. Security forces trace the sabotage to a Vraxian special operations team. The incident threatens to destabilize the fragile peace. Ambassador Thelkor, representing the Meridian Collective, privately warns Marcus that anti-human sentiment is spreading faster than official channels acknowledge. Marcus faces a delicate situation. Responding aggressively to the sabotage confirms fears about human dominance. Ignoring it invites further attacks. He chooses a calculated middle response, requesting the Vraxian ambassador deliver the saboteurs for trial under galactic law, while Amanda Price personally treats the injured Hexari workers, demonstrating human compassion. The Vraxian ambassador refuses, claiming insufficient evidence. Marcus expected this. Kyle Morrison releases comprehensive surveillance data from Architect systems on Hexar Prime, showing every movement the saboteurs made. The evidence is irrefutable and obtained through capabilities only humans possess. the Council faces another crisis. If they fail to enforce justice against the Vraxians, galactic law becomes meaningless. If they prosecute based on human-supplied evidence, they acknowledge human surveillance capabilities exceed all privacy protections. Queen Sarathia proposes a solution. She'll personally extract the saboteurs from Vraxian territory and deliver them for trial, demonstrating that justice applies regardless of human involvement. Her offer serves multiple purposes. It maintains law, prevents human direct action, bestowed and showcases Korvac's military reach. The Vraxian ambassador realizes too late that his resistance strategy has backfired, positioning the Korvacs as humanity's enforcement partner. Sarathia's empire gains status, while his loses face. He withdraws the refused cooperation, surrendering the saboteurs under protest. Elsewhere, Jake Sullivan leads an exploration mission to an architect installation in an uninhabited system called Theta Sector. His team of mixed-species scientists includes Dr. Nathan Cooper, a human xenobiologist, Dr. Xylith, a Zeth physicist, and Commander Vora, a Korvax military officer observing for Queen Sarathia. The Theta Sector installation dwarfs previous discoveries. Occupying the entire inner system, it consists of millions of interconnected platforms generating energy from the local star. Sullivan's enhanced perception identifies it as a communications relay, designed to contact something far beyond the galaxy's edge. Dr. Cooper's analysis reveals disturbing patterns. The relay transmitted continuously for eons, then fell silent approximately 300 years ago. This timeline coincides with the architect's projections for when the approaching threat would enter detectable range. Commander Vora questions what this means. Sullivan explains his theory. The architects built the relay to communicate with other galaxies, warning them about the approaching entity. When transmission stopped, either the relay failed or nobody remained to receive messages. Dr. Xylith attempts to access the relay's databases. Even with architect interface training, she struggles until Sullivan assists, their combined consciousness unlocking data streams. What they discover confirms humanity's worst concerns. The approaching entity isn't simply hostile. It's a form of predatory intelligence that consumes space-time itself, unraveling dimensions to fuel its existence. Civilizations don't die fighting it. They cease to have ever existed as the entity erases their timeline retroactively. The architects survived previous encounters by abandoning their home galaxy entirely, fleeing to this one. They built their testing facilities, hoping to find species capable of fighting what they couldn't defeat. Humanity passed the test, not because they're stronger, but because human consciousness operates on principles the entity might not anticipate. Sullivan sends this information to Marcus immediately. The captain realizes the timeline is compressed. The entity will arrive in less than 3 centuries, but preparation requires unity across all galactic species. Human integration must accelerate regardless of resistance. Back on the council station, Marcus calls an emergency session. He presents Sullivan's findings without sugarcoating the danger. Several ambassadors dismiss the threat as human manipulation, claiming humanity fabricates dangers to justify expansion. Ambassador Thelkor, surprisingly, supports Marcus. He acknowledges the data's validity and proposes immediate formation of joint research teams to develop countermeasures. His species remembers ancient legends about the darkness that eats stars. Humanity's discoveries validate Meridian historical records. Queen Sarathia seizes the opportunity. She proposes a formal military alliance between the Korvax Empire and humanity, the first such partnership since the Council's founding. The proposal shocks the Assembly. Sarathia is declaring that the galaxy's most powerful empire views partnership with humanity as essential for survival. The Vraxian ambassador objects vehemently, calling it premature and politically motivated. Sarathia's response is brutal in its honesty. She states that her species will do whatever necessary to survive the coming threat, and humanity offers the best chance. Other species should make similar calculations quickly. Marcus watches the council fracture into distinct camps. Progressive species begin approaching human delegates about partnerships. Conservative powers withdraw, planning resistance. The middle ground collapses as everyone recognizes neutrality is no longer viable. The meeting adjourns with galactic civilization fundamentally divided. Humanity stands at the center of the division, simultaneously offering salvation and representing unprecedented change. Marcus knows the coming months will determine whether the galaxy unites against the threat or tears itself apart in internal conflict. Admiral Morgan contacts him after the session. Earth's governments approve expanded military production and accelerated colonization. More ships are entering the void sector for architect trials. Humanity is preparing for war while everyone else debates. Part 5. 1,000 words. The coalition forms. 6 months after humanity's acceptance into the Council, the galaxy reorganizes around 2 competing visions. Queen Sarathia formalizes her alliance with humanity, creating the adaptive coalition dedicated to preparing for the approaching threat. 12 species join immediately, recognizing that survival requires embracing the changes humanity represents. The Vraxian ambassador forms a counter-organization called the Preservation Union, claiming to defend traditional galactic order against human destabilization. 23 species align with this position, though most maintain quiet diplomatic channels with humanity, hedging their commitments. Captain Marcus Gray relocates to Unity Station, a massive orbital complex constructed by combined human Korvax efforts in one of humanity's granted systems. The station serves as Coalition headquarters and Architect Research Center. Its construction completed in record time using technologies humanity unlocked. Commander Lisa Bennett's interface training program expands dramatically. 300 students from Coalition species work to master Architect systems. Success rates remain low for most species, but the Korvax demonstrate surprising aptitude. Several Korvax students achieve interface levels approaching human capability. This development troubles some human observers. Admiral Catherine Morgan expresses concern during a secure communication with Marcus that humanity might be creating potential rivals. Marcus disagrees, arguing that the approaching threat requires maximum capabilities across all species. Competition serves no purpose if everyone dies. Queen Sarathia arrives at Unity Station for a strategic summit, her first visit to human-controlled territory. Her massive form requires specialized transport and accommodations. Marcus greets her personally in a chamber designed to her specifications, demonstrating the Coalition's commitment to partnership. Their conversation reveals the practical dynamics of human Korvax cooperation. Sarathia acknowledges her species fears becoming junior partners to humanity, but recognizes that the alternative is facing the threat unprepared. She proposes joint command structures, where Korvax experience balances human capabilities. Marcus accepts this framework. He studied Korvax military history and respects their strategic sophistication. The Coalition needs organizational expertise the Korvax possess, while the Korvax need architect access only humans provide. The partnership functions through mutual necessity rather than affection. Meanwhile, the Preservation Union engages in increasingly aggressive actions. Vraxian warships blockade 2 systems where humans attempt to activate architect installations. They claim these installations threaten nearby inhabited worlds and demand neutral inspections before activation proceeds. Kyle Morrison, leading the installation team in one blockaded system, reports to Marcus that the Vraxian claims are technically valid. The installations could generate dangerous energy surges during activation. The Vraxians are using legitimate safety concerns to obstruct coalition efforts. Marcus faces a decision that will define coalition identity. Forcing past the blockade militarily proves coalition willingness to use power, but validates Preservation Union propaganda about human aggression. Accepting the blockade demonstrates respect for concerns, but establishes precedent for obstruction. He chooses an unexpected approach. Marcus contacts Ambassador Thelcor privately, despite the Meridian Collective's nominal membership in the Preservation Union. He proposes that neutral Meridian observers oversee the installation activation, providing independent safety verification while allowing the project to proceed. Thelcor recognizes the opportunity. The Meridian Collective has maintained ambiguous alignment, uncomfortable with both coalition enthusiasm and Preservation Union rigidity. Marcus's proposal offers them a role as honest brokers, potentially elevating their position. After consulting his government, Thelcor agrees. Meridian inspection teams arrive at both blockaded systems within days. Their presence forces the Vraxians to either accept neutral oversight or reveal that safety concerns were pretexts for obstruction. The Vraxians withdraw their blockades rather than be exposed. The incident demonstrates coalition diplomatic sophistication. Lieutenant Daniel Cruz, observing from Unity Station, notes that Marcus effectively split the Preservation Union by offering their moderates a face-saving alternative to confrontation. Several Union species begin reconsidering their alignment. Amanda Price makes a critical discovery during medical research at Unity Station. While treating a Pralith scientist injured in a laboratory accident, she detects unusual neural patterns, indicating partial architect interface capability that developed spontaneously, without training. Further investigation reveals that extended proximity to activated architect technology triggers gradual neural adaptation in species with sufficient plasticity. The effect is subtle and requires months of exposure, but it suggests that interface capability might be teachable to more species than initially believed. This discovery has profound implications. If various species can develop interface ability through exposure rather than intensive training, the coalition can accelerate capability development across its membership. It also means the Preservation Union's position becomes increasingly untenable as more species gain access to architect systems. Price shares her findings with Bennett's training program. They design new protocols incorporating extended exposure to low-level architect systems. Within weeks, students who previously struggled begin showing measurable improvement. The Zeth student who barely achieved minimal connection 6 months ago now accesses complex databases. Queen Serathia recognizes the strategic value immediately. She orders construction of architect exposure facilities throughout Korvac's territory, accelerating her population's adaptation. Other coalition species follow her lead. The coalition transforms from a military alliance into a civilization-wide adaptation program. The Preservation Union responds with propaganda, claiming the coalition engages in dangerous biological experimentation that risks species integrity. Some populations find this message compelling, particularly among species with strong cultural identity concerns. A crisis emerges on the Hexari homeworld. Public protests against coalition membership turn violent after Preservation Union agitators spread rumors that architect exposure causes genetic corruption. 3 coalition research facilities are attacked, resulting in dozens of casualties. Marcus must respond without escalating into civil conflict within coalition territory. He dispatches Amanda Price to Hexar personally, requesting she provide transparent medical examinations for protesters willing to participate. Her ability to heal and her enhanced diagnostic capabilities make her ideally suited for addressing public health concerns. Price's intervention proves effective. She demonstrates that architect exposure causes no harmful effects, only beneficial neural development in compatible species. Her transparent approach and genuine concern for HFY welfare diffuses tensions. Protest leaders who accepted examination become coalition advocates. Meanwhile, Jake Sullivan's exploration teams discover 17 additional architect installations across coalition space. Each installation contains different technology suites, suggesting the architects specialize their facilities for various functions. One installation focuses on weapon development. Another specializes in dimensional engineering. The weapon development facility particularly interests Admiral Morgan. She requests permission to study its systems with an eye toward military applications against the approaching threat. Marcus approves. Recognizing that the coalition needs defensive capabilities, but insists on joint human Korvax research teams to maintain alliance trust. Commander Vora, Queen Sarathia's military representative, leads the Korvax contribution to the weapons research. She and Admiral Morgan develop an effective working relationship despite cultural differences. Their collaboration produces preliminary designs for weapons that can strike across dimensional boundaries, potentially effective against an entity that manipulates space-time. Prototype testing reveals both promise and limitations. The dimensional weapons function but require enormous energy generation, exceeding most species' industrial capacity. Gahanpo. Only by activating multiple architect power installations can the coalition generate sufficient energy for sustained operations. This requirement drives coalition expansion strategy. Marcus proposes activating architect power installations throughout coalition territory, creating an energy network supporting defensive weapon deployment. The proposal requires significant resources and coordination across multiple species, but offers a concrete path toward defensive readiness. The Coalition Council, consisting of representatives from all member species, debates the proposal for 3 days before approving it. Queen Sarathia personally guarantees Korvax resource commitments, making the project economically viable. Other species commit their contributions, creating unprecedented cooperation. As the first year of coalition existence concludes, the organization has transformed from desperate alliance to functioning multi-species civilization, adapting to meet an existential threat. Our humanity remains central, but increasingly shares leadership with mature partners, particularly the Korvax. The Preservation Union watches these developments with growing alarm, recognizing that the coalition is succeeding in exactly the ways they claimed impossible. Part 6. 1,300 words. Escalation and Revelation. The Coalition's Energy Network project proceeds rapidly across 14 systems, transforming the political landscape as infrastructure integrating multiple species becomes reality. Marcus coordinates from Unity Station, while Admiral Morgan directs military preparation, and Queen Sarathia manages diplomatic expansion, recruiting new coalition members. The Vraxian ambassador escalates Preservation Union activities, recognizing that time favors the coalition. He convinces Union leadership to authorize more aggressive interference, leading to a series of technical malfunctions that disrupt coalition supply lines and communication networks. Lieutenant Daniel Cruz traces the malfunctions to sophisticated cyber warfare targeting coalition logistics networks. The attacks demonstrate impressive technical capability, but leave forensic traces that Cruz identifies as Vraxian in origin. He presents evidence to Marcus, recommending immediate retaliation. Marcus restrains the impulse toward military response, instead bringing evidence before the full Galactic Council in a session demanding all species attend. His presentation methodically documents each attack, its Preservation Union origin, and the danger such actions pose to galactic stability while facing an existential threat. The session becomes a referendum on the galaxy's future direction. Coalition species demand accountability and sanctions against the Vraxians. Preservation Union members defend their allies, claiming coalition paranoia and fabricated evidence. Ambassador Thelkor and the Meridian Collective attempt mediation. Queen Sarathia delivers a speech that reverberates through galactic politics. She acknowledges historical Korvax skepticism toward rapid change and admits her initial fear of human emergence. But she states that survival requires courage to transform, and the coalition represents civilization's best adaptation path. She challenges Preservation Union species to consider whether their resistance serves survival or merely preserves comfortable decline. Her words carry weight precisely because the Korvax Empire historically embodied cautious conservatism. If even Sarathia recognizes necessity for transformation, resistance appears increasingly obsolete. 3 Preservation Union species announce immediate withdrawal from that organization and application for coalition membership. The Vraxian ambassador storms from the council session, declaring that the Preservation Union will defend traditional galactic order through all necessary means. His statement borders on declaration of war, shocking even his allies. The galaxy teeters on the edge of civilization-wide conflict. Amanda Price makes a breakthrough at Unity Station that shifts strategic calculations. Her research into architect biological technologies reveals sophisticated medical systems capable of extending lifespans dramatically and enhancing cognitive function across species. She successfully demonstrates life extension on volunteer test subjects from multiple species. This discovery transforms coalition appeal from defensive necessity to positive attraction. The Preservation Union's argument that coalition membership risks species integrity collapses when members demonstrate enhanced health, longer lives, and improved cognitive abilities. Coalition recruitment accelerates as populations demand their governments secure these benefits. Price's discovery also reveals something disturbing in architect records. The medical technologies were developed as emergency measures when the approaching entity first threatened the architect's original galaxy. They needed enhanced populations to fight effectively. But even with enhancements, they lost and fled to this galaxy. Marcus convenes coalition leadership to discuss the implications. If enhanced architects failed against the entity, what chance does the coalition have? The meeting gathers humans, Korvax, Prolith leadership, and representatives from 8 other species in Unity Station's secure conference chamber. Jake Sullivan presents his analysis of architect combat records recovered from various installations. The architects fought the entity using conventional physical weapons and energy manipulation, attempting to destroy it through overwhelming force. This approach failed because the entity exists partially outside normal space-time, making traditional damage ineffective. Sullivan proposes a different strategy based on humanity's void sector trials. The architects tested for adaptability and unconventional thinking because they recognized their own approach failed. Humanity must fight using principles the entity won't anticipate. Creativity, irrationality, and willingness to attempt impossible solutions. Commander Vora questions how abstract principles translate to practical military strategy. Admiral Morgan responds by presenting preliminary tactical frameworks developed by Human Korvax Joint Command. They propose engaging the entity across a multiple dimensions simultaneously, forcing it to fragment its attention while coalition forces attack vulnerabilities created by that fragmentation. The strategy requires capabilities only recently developed through architect technology. It also requires unprecedented coordination across multiple species and acceptance of potentially catastrophic casualties. Queen Sarathia acknowledges the horrific cost, but agrees that half measures against an entity that erases timelines make no strategic sense. Coalition leadership approves the tactical framework and authorizes accelerated military expansion. Admiral Morgan receives authority to recruit and train mixed-species military forces, integrating them into a unified command structure. It's the first galaxy-wide military organization in recorded history. Meanwhile, the Preservation Union fragments under internal pressure. Member populations increasingly demand coalition benefits their governments deny them. On the Vraxian homeworld, protests erupt when citizens learn that coalition members receive life extension treatments while their government maintains opposition. The Vraxian ambassador attempts to suppress protests through military force, creating a humanitarian crisis. Thousands die in crackdowns. Millions more flee Vraxian territory, seeking asylum in coalition space. Marcus authorizes accepting refugees, straining coalition resources, but creating political opportunities. Commander Lisa Bennett leads a daring mission deep into Preservation Union territory. Intelligence indicates a major architect installation exists on a world called Kragoth, claimed by a Union species called the Drathan hierarchy. If coalition forces can activate this installation despite Union control, it demonstrates that geographic boundaries cannot prevent architect system access. Bennett's team consists of 12 humans and 8 Korvax interface specialists. They infiltrate Kragoth using stealth technology developed from architect databases, avoiding detection by Drathan defense networks. The installation lies beneath an ice sheet near Kragoth's south pole, dormant for millennia. Activation proceeds smoothly until Drathan military forces detect energy signatures and dispatch rapid response units. Bennett faces a critical decision. Abort the mission, preserving secrecy but sacrificing the installation, or complete activation and fight their way out. She chooses completion. The installation activates, connecting to the growing coalition energy network and extending defensive capabilities deep into Union territory. Drathan forces arrive to find coalition personnel surrounded by active architect defenses that their weapons cannot penetrate. The standoff lasts 3 hours, while diplomats negotiate frantically. Marcus offers the Drathan hierarchy immediate coalition membership with full technology access if they allow Bennett's team to depart peacefully. The alternative is extended military confrontation they cannot win. Drathan leadership accepts, recognizing reality. Their species becomes the first Preservation Union member to switch sides under direct military pressure. The hierarchy's defection triggers a cascade as other Union species reconsider their positions. Within 6 weeks, the Preservation Union effectively ceases to exist as a coherent organization. Most members join the coalition or declare neutrality. Only the Vraxians and 3 allied species maintain opposition, increasingly isolated politically and militarily. The Vraxian ambassador makes a final desperate gambit. He contacts Marcus directly, proposing a summit to negotiate Vraxian coalition membership under favorable terms. His communication reveals a civilization facing internal collapse, military exhaustion, and population exodus. Marcus consults with Queen Serathia before responding. They agree that accepting Vraxian membership ends organized resistance, but risks bringing hostile elements into coalition structure. They decide that galactic unity matters more than short-term security concerns. The summit occurs on neutral territory, a space station operated by the Meridian Collective. Marcus, Queen Serathia, Admiral Morgan, and Commander Bennett meet with Vraxian leadership, including their ambassador and military commanders. Negotiations proceed tensely. Vraxians demand coalition membership without admitting responsibility for previous actions. Marcus refuses, insisting on accountability for attacks and sabotage. The negotiations stall until Ambassador Thelkor proposes a compromise. Vraxians join the coalition, but their military forces operate under joint human Korvax command for a probationary period. Queen Sarathia supports this framework. It grants coalition membership while ensuring Vraxian forces cannot threaten coalition security. The arrangement humiliates proud Vraxian military traditions, but their government accepts, having no realistic alternative. The agreement transforms galactic politics fundamentally. With Vraxian membership, the coalition encompasses 70% of galactic civilization. The remaining neutrals begin joining as isolation becomes untenable. Within 3 months, 90% of known species align with the coalition. Marcus reflects on the transformation during a quiet moment at Unity Station. 1 year ago, humanity barely qualified for council membership. Now they co-lead a civilization-spanning organization preparing for war against an entity that destroys galaxies. The speed of change feels surreal. Amanda Price joins him in observation of coalition space spreading across holographic displays. She notes that interface capability continues spreading through populations exposed to architect technology. Conservative estimates suggest 15% of coalition populations will achieve basic interface within a generation. This projection has profound implications. Interface capability was humanity's unique advantage initially. As it spreads, other species gain similar access to architect systems. Humanity's special status diminishes, transforming into one of many capable species rather than sole inheritors. Marcus considers whether this concerns him and realizes it doesn't. The approaching threat requires maximum coalition capability regardless of human relative advantage. If humanity's role shifts from sole saviors to first among equals, that serves the ultimate goal. Kyle Morrison interrupts their contemplation with urgent news. Long-range detection systems at the galaxy's edge, enhanced by architect technology, have detected anomalous spatial readings. The patterns match theoretical signatures of the approaching entity. The readings indicate the entity's arrival timeline needs revision. Instead of 3 centuries, current projections suggest less than 2 centuries. The coalition has less time than the architects calculated, possibly because the entity's velocity increases as it approaches new galaxies. Marcus immediately convenes coalition leadership. The accelerated timeline demands re-evaluation of all preparation schedules. Military expansion must accelerate. More architect installations require activation. More species need interface training. Resources must be reallocated toward immediate readiness rather than long-term development. Admiral Morgan presents revised military projections. Current force development schedules would provide adequate defensive capabilities in 150 years. The entity arrives in 180. That leaves a 30-year margin that seems comfortable, but assumes no unexpected complications. Queen Sarathia argues for even more aggressive preparation, noting that complex military operations always encounter delays and complications. She proposes targeting readiness in 130 years, building comfortable buffer time. Other coalition leaders support this approach despite the resource demands. The meeting concludes with authorization for maximum preparation efforts. Every coalition resource directs toward readiness. Marcus issues the call to all member species. The galaxy faces its greatest test, and survival requires total commitment from every civilization. Part 7. 1,300 words, convergence and commitment. 2 years after humanity's emergence from the void sector, the coalition has transformed galactic civilization into a unified military and industrial complex. Unity Station expands continuously, becoming a city-sized installation housing millions of personnel from 43 species. Captain Marcus Gray, now formally titled Coalition Commander, oversees preparation efforts from a command center integrating human, Corvax, and multi-species leadership structures. His role has evolved from ship captain to coordinator of civilization-scale operations. Admiral Catherine Morgan commands coalition military forces exceeding 5 million vessels, ranging from human-enhanced ships to traditional alien warships, upgraded with architect technology. The fleet operates from 17 major bases and conducts continuous training exercises preparing for unconventional dimensional warfare. Commander Lisa Bennett's interface training program has graduated 3,000 specialists with advanced architect system capabilities. These graduates return to their homeworlds, establishing regional training centers and activating local architect installations. The network of active facilities grows daily. Queen Sarathia announces a historic development during a coalition summit. Korvax scientists, working with human researchers, have successfully replicated some architect technologies without direct interface control. They've developed manufacturing processes that any species can operate, producing weapons and defensive systems based on architect principles. This achievement represents a crucial milestone. The coalition no longer depends entirely on interface specialists to access architect capabilities. Mass production of defensive technologies becomes possible, enabling rapid fleet expansion and planetary defense network construction. Jake Sullivan leads a major expedition to the galaxy's edge, establishing early warning stations in systems nearest to where the entity will enter. His team of 200 specialists from 12 species creates a detection network spanning 500 light years, providing months of advance warning when the entity arrives. Sullivan's reports from the edge carry increasing urgency. Spatial distortions are intensifying as the entity approaches. Entire star systems near the galaxy's rim experience temporal anomalies, with time flowing at different rates in different locations. Some systems age centuries in months, while others freeze temporally. These effects demonstrate the entity's reality warping power even before arrival. Coalition scientists study the phenomena, developing theoretical models of how the entity manipulates space-time. Lieutenant Daniel Cruz coordinates research teams attempting to devise countermeasures. The research reveals sobering truths. The entity doesn't simply destroy civilizations. It consumes dimensional stability itself, collapsing the mathematical structures underlying reality. Conventional weapons cannot harm something that exists partially outside the dimensional framework where cause and effect function normally. Admiral Morgan revises tactical plans based on these findings. Coalition forces must fight not by destroying the entity, but by reinforcing reality's structure faster than the entity can collapse it. Architect technologies provide tools for dimensional stabilization, but implementation requires precise coordination across enormous spatial volumes. Commander Bennett develops training protocols for dimensional combat, teaching mixed species units to operate stabilization equipment while under attack. The training pushes personnel to their limits physically and mentally. Casualties during exercises exceed those in traditional military training, but Bennett refuses to compromise on readiness. Amanda Price establishes medical facilities throughout Coalition space, preparing for massive casualties. Her life extension treatments allow creation of enhanced medical corps capable of treating injuries across species boundaries. She also develops psychological support protocols for populations facing existential threat. On Unity Station, Marcus meets privately with Queen Sarathia to discuss leadership succession. Both recognize that the coming war will likely kill many current leaders. The coalition needs continuity plans, ensuring organizational stability even after catastrophic losses. Sarathia proposes a joint human Korvax command council with distributed authority rather than centralized leadership. If Marcus dies, command doesn't fall to a single replacement, but distributes across multiple experienced leaders. The structure maintains functionality even after severe casualties. Marcus approves the framework and extends it throughout coalition structure. Every critical position gains designated successors from different species, preventing single points of failure. The approach requires extensive coordination, but creates organizational resilience. Meanwhile, neutral species observing coalition preparations increasingly abandon neutrality. The entity's approach becomes undeniable as spatial distortions spread. Populations that initially refused coalition membership now beg for inclusion and protection. The coalition faces capacity questions regarding late-joining species. Accepting them strains resources, but increases total defensive capability. Marcus establishes priority systems, accepting species that can contribute meaningfully, while directing others toward defensive preparations they can implement independently. Kyle Morrison achieves a breakthrough in power generation technology, successfully modifying architect power installations to produce energy at rates 10 times higher than original designs. The modification requires sophisticated control systems only interface specialists can operate, but it transforms coalition energy budget. With enhanced power generation, defensive weapon systems can operate at much higher intensities. Fleet weapons receive upgrades. Planetary defense networks expand coverage. The coalition's defensive capacity increases dramatically with each installation Morrison's teams enhance. The Vraxians, now coalition members for over a year, prove surprisingly effective contributors. Their military traditions and industrial capacity, redirected toward coalition goals, significantly strengthen defensive preparations. Former Vraxian ambassador, now serving as coalition logistics coordinator, demonstrates exceptional organizational skill. His rehabilitation symbolizes coalition integration success. Species that were enemies 2 years ago now function as partners, united by shared survival necessity. Cultural differences persist, but operate within framework of mutual respect and common purpose. Ambassador Thelkor's Meridian Collective provides critical diplomatic expertise, maintaining coalition cohesion across diverse species. His efforts prevent internal conflicts that could fragment the alliance. Marcus increasingly relies on Thelkor's political skill to navigate complex multi-species dynamics. As the galaxy unifies, humanity's role continues evolving. Initially unique for interface capability, our humans now share this with growing numbers across all species. Human advantage becomes primarily historical rather than functional, as first species to demonstrate capabilities that others subsequently developed. Some humans struggle with this transition. Admiral Morgan confronts officers expressing resentment that other species now access abilities humanity earned through void sector trials. She reminds them that the goal was never human supremacy, but galactic survival. Marcus addresses humanity directly through quantum broadcast, reaching Earth and all human colonies. He acknowledges that humanity's emergence transformed the galaxy, but emphasizes that transformation's purpose was preparing civilization for survival, not establishing human dominance. His speech resonates across human populations. Earth's governments reaffirm commitment to coalition partnership rather than human leadership. New human colonies integrate with multi-species populations rather than establishing purely human settlements. Humanity embraces its role as coalition catalyst rather than coalition master. Commander Vora reports concerning intelligence from deep space monitoring. The entity's approach vector suggests it will enter the galaxy through a sector containing 17 inhabited systems, including 2 major population centers. Those systems face direct exposure to the entity's reality warping effects before coalition forces can effectively respond. Marcus and Queen Sarathia face an agonizing decision. They can evacuate those systems, preserving populations but abandoning territory and potentially demoralized coalition forces. Or they can defend in place, risking massive civilian casualties but potentially slowing the entity's advance. They choose evacuation with maintained defensive presence. Civilian populations evacuate to interior systems, while military forces establish defensive positions in the threatened sector. The strategy accepts temporary territorial loss while preserving population and establishing first contact with the entity under somewhat controlled conditions. The evacuation proceeds over 6 months, relocating 2 billion civilians from 17 systems. It's the largest population movement in galactic history, straining coalition logistics but demonstrating organizational capacity. Military forces fortify the evacuated systems, preparing for initial engagement. Jake Sullivan volunteers to command the forward defensive positions, arguing his dimensional perception provides crucial capability for first contact operations. Marcus approves despite recognizing that Sullivan likely won't survive the initial engagement. Sullivan's command consists of 250,000 personnel from 20 species, operating from fortified installations throughout the threatened sector. They deploy experimental dimensional stabilization equipment and weapons designed specifically for reality-warping threats. As preparations near completion, Amanda Price discovers something unexpected in Architect medical records. The Architects attempted biological enhancement as last resort defensive measure in their original galaxy. The enhancements worked, but produced psychological changes that fractured their civilization internally, contributing to their defeat. She reports this to Marcus, with concern that coalition enhancement programs might produce similar psychological effects. Marcus acknowledges the risk, but notes that the coalition's multi-species structure provides resilience against single-species psychological vulnerabilities that doomed the Architects. The entity's arrival timeline compresses further. Long-range detection indicates entry will occur within 18 months rather than 2 years. Coalition readiness accelerates into final preparation phase. All non-essential activities cease as civilization focuses entirely on defensive readiness. Marcus delivers a final address to coalition leadership before the entity arrives. He acknowledges that the coming battle will cost millions of lives and possibly fail despite all preparations. But he emphasizes that the coalition represents the galaxy's best effort, incorporating architect knowledge with capabilities the Architects never possessed. He notes that humanity survived the Void Sector trials not through superior technology or intelligence, but through willingness to adapt and sacrifice for survival. The coalition embodies those same principles on civilization scale. Whatever the outcome, the galaxy faces its trial united rather than divided. Queen Sarathia speaks after Marcus, adding Korvac's perspective. She reflects that her species existed for millennia through cautious conservatism, avoiding risks and change. Humanity's emergence forced transformation her people resisted initially. Now that transformation represents their survival chance. She commits the Korvax Empire's complete resources to coalition defense. Every ship, every warrior, every resource directs toward the coming battle. The Korvax face potential extinction, but will face it standing alongside partners rather than hiding in isolated fear. Other species leaders make similar commitments. The coalition solidifies into unified purpose transcending individual civilizations. Humanity, Korvax, Meridian, Pralith, Drathan, former Vraxians, and dozens of others prepare to face the entity as one civilization rather than competing powers. On Unity Station, Marcus stands in the observation deck with his core team. Commander Bennett, Admiral Morgan, Lieutenant Cruz, Kyle Morrison, Amanda Price, and representatives from coalition species gather to witness the final countdown to entity arrival. Jake Sullivan transmits from the forward defensive sector, confirming readiness. His voice carries calm acceptance of probable death. Marcus thanks him for his service and promises that the coalition will remember all who fall in the coming battle. The entity enters the galaxy on schedule, appearing simultaneously across the threatened sector as spatial distortions intensify into reality collapses. Sullivan's forces engage immediately, deploying dimensional stabilization fields and firing weapons designed to harm beings existing outside normal space-time. Initial reports confirm the entity is everything the architects feared. Conventional damage proves ineffective. Ships that approach too closely cease to exist retroactively, erased from timeline. Entire installations collapse into dimensional singularities. But coalition weapons achieve some effect. Stabilization fields slow reality collapse temporarily. Dimensional weapons create temporary wounds in the entity's structure. Sullivan reports that the entity adapts to each tactic quickly. But the coalition forces are adapting faster, implementing new approaches before the entity counters previous ones. Marcus watches tactical displays showing the battle's opening phase. Casualties mount horrifically, but the entity's advance slows measurably. The coalition is achieving what the architects couldn't. They're learning to fight this enemy in real time, adapting faster than it can overwhelm them. Queen Serathia contacts Marcus privately during the battle's first hours. She states simply that, regardless of outcome, the coalition justified its existence by demonstrating that diverse species can unite against impossible odds. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't architect technology, but proof that unity serves survival. Marcus agrees and adds that the battle is just beginning. Whether the coalition ultimately wins or loses, they'll fight with everything they have, demonstrating that this galaxy's civilizations refuse to accept extinction passively. The story concludes not with victory or defeat, but with civilizations united in determined resistance, fighting for survival against an enemy that destroyed the architects themselves, uncertain of the outcome, but certain of their commitment to face it together.